Hello everybody at GovLab, my name is Mike Bracken and I'm the Executive Director of Digital for the UK Government. I work in the Cabinet Office in the centre of the UK Government and I help set up and run an organisation called the Government Digital Service. Yeah, so I started in summer 2011, and in the last day of the summer parliament, I believe, the then Speaker of Parliament promised Parliament that when it next met, so in October, that it would have an e-petition site. Thanks a lot for that. So we were sort of given that hospital pass when we started. So rather than do what government does, big procurement, write technology, write requirement rules, might take years to do it, we put Mark O'Neill, a couple of developers, Pete Herlihy in a room, gave them a little bit of money, not much, credit card to buy some hosting, and we talked to some people who'd done stuff before, like My Society, and we spun up an e-petition service. And it proved to be wildly successful. We iterated it hugely, and one of the criteria we put in there was if a petition attracted more than 100,000 signatures, then a question or an issue could be raised on the floor of the House of Commons. And we've seen many issues today raised in the House of Commons in that way. So we've created a direct link between the electorate and the actual floor of the House of Commons. And we've done that for, I can't remember the final bill, but it's a few £100,000, which is a tremendous value for money. I think something like 1 in 12 people in this country have signed or read a petition. Delivery is the single best way of getting things done. I'll tell you an anecdote before we started, because I had a taste of government. I've not really worked in government before, but I've worked in large bureaucracies, and I've worked in 5 different sectors, and many of the challenges we face in large bureaucracies are the same. And when I started in government, I talked to a bunch of other people, some of whom are my friends, who've had similarly la-di-da titles in government over the past 20 years. And I said to them all, come on, I know all of you, you didn't quite get done what you hoped to get done. Why is that? And the answer was, I simply couldn't get stuff done. Everything became a battle for ideas. And a battle for ideas, it's all about then one's position in a power hierarchy. It's a very soft power issue. It's about changing ministerial whims. It's about sitting within sort of power structures that are not very well defined. So the best way around that is simply to deliver and create a new compact between ourselves and the users. And this endless focus on users and delivering to them has created a new power centre in government. And what it's done is shifted people's opinions that they have to work with us rather than we ask nicely if they wouldn't mind at all working with us. And that's quite an aggressive approach, but in a federated system like ours, it's proven to be very effective. I think there are 3 major tactics in doing this. The first is to recognise that most people in the public service and in government come to government for the same reasons that we do. They want to do some good stuff, public good. They want to change. It's not all about the glamour and the money, as many people say in public sector. So the first thing to do, and it's often understated, is just simply to ask politely. And that's what we did. We sat around with a bunch of like-minded people and said, would you mind ever so much in doing some stuff? So let me give you an example of that. We sat around with gov.uk, some of the very early betas, and said to people in departments, senior people, director generals, people who are going to run large parts of government, and said, would you mind closing down your various websites and joining gov.uk, because it's better for everybody, and also the tools and services that we will give you to run that part of their domain will be better than the ones you have now on your own site. Now, there's a great degree of sovereignty in that. People go, well, it's my site, it's my service. And yet 3 or 4 senior individuals from key departments said, yep, we'll do that, we'll go first. And to this day, we owe those people, Antonio Romeo, Brian Etheridge, Adam By, and a few others, a huge debt of gratitude for going first. So the first thing to do is ask nicely. The second thing to do, the second tactic we use, which is completely contradictory, is to not ask at all. And that tactic is simply where we don't ask people who are likely to say no and don't have to deal with all the sovereignty issues, we simply route around them by going straight to their users. So gov.uk and some of the services that we offered, things like e-petitions, a service we spun up in about 8 weeks with 4 people for a very small amount of money, suddenly had tens of millions of users over the last couple of years. That means that becomes so public that it can't be ignored. And so people have little choice other to engage and work with you. So the combination of asking nicely and not asking at all, which sound very contradictory, can actually be quite useful. And the third way we did that is to actually simply demonstrate rapid delivery. Most people inside and outside government are completely fed up with not being able to get stuff done. Using the tools and the techniques of the internet age and using the people and the approach that we have here, it's very agile and it's very delivery focused. We've demonstrated rapid delivery, and in a bureaucracy which tends towards inertia, and people who've been here a long time and will have deep levels of frustration, that always attracts buy-in. So ask nicely, don't ask at all, but deliver. The foundational, because we had to start really about some very basics about how government works, and we had to focus on the user. And if we didn't put them into simple messages which are easy to consume, then our offer would be too complex. When I travel around the hundreds of government offices right now, as in Preston and Bristol and Coventry and Swansea and Glasgow in the last few weeks, I see those design principles. They come back all the time because they're easy to consume. They give people a North Star to follow. And it gives people a very simple message that all of them are really about focusing on the user. Cost saving it to some degree is everything. It's our minister's lifeblood. We are here largely because of the confluence of 5 forces acting on government. And one of those forces is, for the first time, probably since the Second World War, we have a long-term plan to reduce the cost of public administration. The cost of the public administration bill, for right or wrong, has gone up by 4% on average year on year since the Second World War, for many good reasons. I'm not sort of political scientist or giving anyone a history lesson, but we're now, because of the market conditions, of the crash in 2008-9, and in the long-term economic cycle that we're in, we have to take money out. We've been told that by Treasury and increased by politicians, and those are political issues. But facing that reality means that a move towards digitization, a move towards efficiency, has now got an absolute priority in people's minds, because we are in an odd position. We're not a commercial organisation. We can't simply choose to turn stuff off. The government, so we've got to be more efficient, and we've got to be better. And we have to be honest in that the government has never been well blessed by lots of people who come from a background of making services more efficient. We have many, many qualities and characteristics, but making things more refined, making it efficient and taking money out of a system is not something that we're pretty good at. So digital has found by happenstance having an era of austerity is a welcome bedfellow to the sort of digital push that we have, and it's proven to be a great combination. It's not enough to save money. Look, there's one of the false binaries that we talk about is, if we have a current analog system, lots of paper flowing, lots of friction in that system, maybe 30% of people having to phone up because the online system doesn't work, maybe them doing that 5 times, as some of our research shown. Taking the cost of the IT behind that and reducing it by 10%, that isn't really a saving. You're just moving the fish knives around on the Titanic, frankly. What you have to do is recast the entire thing and make it digital. So savings of the magnitude that we're looking at become the outcome of the transformation. The motivation isn't to take 10% off what we already have. The motivation is to take 90% off by doing it very differently. And that's why digitisation is such an important play for government. Government has got itself into a terrible position with risk, and the false binaries are obvious. So we haven't tried to persuade anybody about risk. We've simply demonstrated a new way of risk. Let me tell you a tale, and I think this is the same for all governments. In the late 1990s, early 2000s, governments took a view. The internet came along and was starting to become mainstream. And governments, well, this is interesting and it's useful, but we're not quite sure where it fits, and it looks a bit insecure and it looks a bit risky. So you know what we're going to do? It looks most like IT, so we're going to give it to the IT guy. Great. And they sort of understand that, right? Many corporations did the same thing. Put it in the IT department, that's where it comes. The problem the government then had was compounded because the IT guy was then outsourced to a bunch of companies who were IT companies. So suddenly we'd given our internet chops to a bunch of companies who were often selling us tin and kit, which isn't the internet. So our internet services had become hidden by something else, and that has gone on for a long time. Now, most companies recoiled from that in the mid-2000s when actually we've got to put the internet front and centre of our business rather than leaving it in the IT department. And government hasn't done that. And what that's done is actually our risk cycle has come full circle, because we did that to avoid risk, and actually it's the riskiest thing you can possibly do. Because in that time, we've had one IT failure after another, as have many other governments. And I won't enumerate them here, but NHS IT was one of the most recent ones, e-borders, which was commissioned in 2007. So we keep failing. So the risk we have is, if we don't adopt this new way of working, if we don't adopt agile and open standards and the tools of the internet, the only risk we have is that we continue an astounding track record of failure. So the risk profile has come full circle. We don't have to spell that out. Every time we deliver for a small amount of money, on target, that reaches millions of people, that demonstrates huge success, it chips away at this risk profile. So delivery is the way of changing the risk profile. The single biggest problem government has when its view of risk is, we're government, we always pick up the bill. So the idea that you can outsource risk is a complete false binary. We have time and time again, when a big IT contract goes wrong, we may reclaim a little bit of cost, but effectively we have to start again, and the taxpayer always pays. So I'd rather have a system where we learn, we fail fast, we are going to fail, we do on occasion, but we fail at such minimal cost in comparison to these big projects, and we fail quickly, so we learn and we have some course correction. That's a very different risk profile. It's the risk profile of the internet age versus the risk profile of the industrial age, and it seems to be working for us. If you're going to come into government, and I advise that you do, working outside and doing things like GovLab is brilliant. I did a lot of stuff outside government, but come into government, here's 3 things that you should do, which I'd been told. Firstly, be more confident. If you know the internet, if you know the tools of the internet, if you can get stuff done, you're already better than most government departments and agencies at creating public services. So be confident and deliver quickly. Second thing is go for the big stuff. Government's wide and it's federated, and a lot of the stuff it does is important, but it's marginal in terms of volume and size. Go for the stuff that gets millions of people excited, and go for that relentlessly. And that's the hard stuff as well. So go for the hard stuff. Don't feel your way in gently. Dive in the deep end. Third stuff, and this is where you have to, this is the most tough message to give, is it's going to be hard. So expect pushback. These are big systems which are impersonal, so you've got to be ready for that. You'll be ready for plenty of rejection, and root around it, rise above it, and be very brave. And enjoy it. It's fantastic. It's the best thing you can possibly do. I've worked in 5 industries. I've delivered digital services in more industries than I care to remember. There's nothing at all that gives you anything like the satisfaction of making the lives of millions of people better, and particularly when those people have some of the most profound needs in our society.